Welcome to the Mike White Podcast, where I, Mike White, share my conversations and book reviews through my journey to learn all that goes on in this amazing world. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, welcome to the Mike White Podcast. Today on the show, we got a submariner, Jaime Salgado. So he was on the USS Columbus out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. He was on a 688 fast attack submarine. And then his second tour, I got to serve with him on board the USS West Virginia at a Kings Bay, Georgia, Ohio class SSBN submarine. And so Jaime, he's a first class petty officer logistics specialist. And thanks for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike. It's weird to call it by your first name because usually it was Sir. But
no, yeah, there's no more of that. But yeah, how have you been? Are you still in Kings Bay?
Yeah, I'm actually still in Kings Bay. I got off the West Virginia in February of this year, and I already had orders to report to Submarine Supply Assistance Support Team at on the waterfront down in Kings Bay. So currently, I'm the LPO there right now. And for those that don't know, I'm the leading petty officer at that command, and I have about 12 guys that work with me. It's a good.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad you finished the sea tour and you get a little breather. Hopefully a little less hectic there on shore duty. But today I wanted to really go through from your background and going up to why you chose to go in submarines. And so if anyone's out there, maybe, starting off their career, trying to see if the Navy is right for them, see what a logistics LS does. That's, the supply side, which a lot of people, I didn't know all that went in, and just how vitally important supply is in keeping our ships running. And it just never stops. So there's always maintenance to be done, always parts needed. And that's where you guys come in and save the day. So where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up, so I was born in El Paso, Texas, and I grew up in El Paso and Sunland Park, New Mexico. Sunland Park is where my house was. It's kind of weird because they're literally a stone throw away from each other. So you're always either in El Paso or New Mexico because the Rio Grande separates it. They're so close together. So I worked in El Paso, grew up there, did shopping, everything else, movie theaters with friends, the mall, and then grew up in Sunland Park, New Mexico with my elementary, middle school, and high school just down the road. That's where I grew up.
Yeah, and I've only been to El Paso a few times. My dad was stationed out there in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Oh,
not too far away.
Yeah,
but I just remembered a lot of desert. You got the smog, and it's not very big. There's pretty much just El Paso, and then everything else is pretty rural.
Yeah.
Did you go in a big high school at all, or a pretty small school?
If I remember correctly, my high school was a 3A. I can't really quite remember how big my graduating class was, but it wasn't that big. A lot of local kids from that area. We all, for the most part, either went to school together or like as kids, elementary, and then grew up together. Our parents, most of our parents knew each other's parents and stuff like that. So it was a very small school, but just big enough. Yeah.
Did you have any friends there that wanted to go in the Navy, or was that just you yourself thought, oh, I'm gonna go do this? Or how'd you get introduced to the Navy?
Okay, so I knew ever since I was very little that I wanted to be in the service. Like, I just found that so interesting, and to this day I'm still a huge history buff, and I'm a very patriotic person, and I love this country, and I wanted to be a part of something great and bigger than me, and have that experience. So it's actually funny because I originally wanted to be a Marine. Everybody wants to be a Marine. I love the uniforms. I love their history and just the grunt aspect of it. And that's what I wanted. And I went to go talk to him because I actually wanted to be on tanks. I wanted to be
That's badass.
Tank battalion. I wanted to drive a tank, be in a tank team and all that really bad. And when I went to go talk to them, I was a junior. I believe I was a junior in high school, and I walked in. They were more than happy to see someone come in, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, hey man, what's up? Can we help you?" We went through the process. I took off my jacket, and he saw my tattoo that I already had in high school. I had this tattoo in high school, believe it or not. And
Wow.
yeah, I was pretty tatted up in high school. My parents I mean, I wasn't a troublemaker really. And I worked jobs. I was a responsible kid. My parents were very, very lenient with me, but strict when they had to be. So, it was one of those things that they let me do. So after that, I had walked in and, took off my jacket. We sat down and he kind of like shrugged, and I was like, what's going on? He goes, "We can't help you. Our tattoo policy is very strict." And at the time it was. And he says, "Since your tattoo goes below the elbow, we can't even, we can't even have you in." Like, I was like, "Well, I know there's waivers. Do you think there's a waiver that, And he said, "No." He says, the commandant of the sergeant major commandant of the Marine Corps is adamant, you know, and whoever the main general is, like RCNO or version of
Yeah.
the Marine Corps, right? Their side, they were
Top of the top.
very strict at the time. And this was back in 2009, 2010. And
Wow.
so, so I was like, okay. And you think that they would do everything they could to try and get me, to try and, even a waiver. Because you look at Marines, even at that time, they're all tatted up. So I didn't quite understand. But that was their policy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just a young 16, 17-year-old kid. And I said, okay, well, that hurt. That really hurt me. I felt like that's all I ever wanted. And it was just not going to happen. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to the Army. Screw it. I wanted tanks. The Army has tanks. So
Yeah.
I went to go talk to them. And, they were way more than happy to see me come in, and did the whole thing and the process, took the practice ASVAB, and started going through paperwork with them. And my mom, very old school Hispanic woman. And I'm the only son out of 3 kids. And she goes, "No, I can't have you join the Army. They're going to use you. They're going to take you for granted. You're just property to them. They're going to send you out to Iraq and Afghanistan," which at the time was very, very, like, still very active. And
Oh yeah.
she goes, "They're just going to send you over there. And I don't want you, she goes, please don't do this to me." And, I love my mom and I respect my mom to no end. But I was like, you know what? I still want to do this. This is what I want to do. And, she didn't really accept it, but, she was very supportive towards the middle of it. And then shortly after that, the Army recruiters were just harassing me, just constantly bugging me and wanting to come over to my house and, just all the time on my back. And I was like, man, this is annoying, right? And then their whole stories kept changing on what they would offer me. And like, I told them what I wanted. They told me, "Oh, everything's going to be fine. Everything that we're going to give you is going to be on paper in your contract." So they were just trying to rush everything and just kind of, push me through as quick,
Meet their quotas.
as quick as possible without really educating me or making sure that I got what I wanted, right? You know how it goes.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit my pursue. I'm going to quit in pursuing the military right now. And so I just continue with like my school and football. And then I met this girl who I just absolutely fell in love with. And she's actually my wife right now. We've been married a little over 10 years, and we have a 4-year-old son together. But
That's awesome.
we met. I just was smitten by her, and she was everything. So we, in high school, that young love and all that stuff. And her dad, every time I would go to her house, or we'd hang out, or we'd go to football games, or we'd go to parties or whatever. I found out that her dad was in the Navy, and I was like, okay, like because she moved to our high school when I was like in 10th grade. And I was like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" She was, "Oh, my dad's Navy. So we're just stationed here." And yeah, that's how it went. So over time, I got to know her dad, right, and her mom. And her dad was the chief at the time. an E7 in the Navy. He was in charge. He was the leading chief petty officer of, I think it was District 9, NRD Phoenix. So he
Okay.
ran a bunch of offices in a certain
So he was the recruiter guy. He's
yeah,
the recruiter guy.
yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly what he is. He's an NC. So over time, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I should talk to him. And my mom said, maybe you should talk to him. And I was like, okay. And I didn't want to because it just kind of would like affect my pride. I was like, I'm not going to go to my girlfriend's dad. And, we're like, no. So, eventually later, I was like, okay, hey, man, I went and talked to the Navy recruiter. And this is what I was interested in. I told him already after I went to talk to the Navy recruiter. And he's like, okay, well, you're not just doing this. He's like, he sat me down. He got real serious. And he's like, look, I don't want you just to join the Navy just because I'm in the Navy and you're with my daughter, right? And I was like, oh, no, it's not like that. Like, I do really like your daughter, and I'm not trying to, like, in a way get your approval or, kind of like go towards the trend, But I told him what happened. I was like, the Army and Marines, didn't really play out what I wanted to do, but the Navy has really caught my eye, and seeing how successful you are and learning more about it with research I've done, I've become very interested in the Navy. So he's like, awesome. He's like, okay, well, I'll help you out. So from there, he kind of took me under his wing, helped me out a lot. And I ended up depping in when I was 17 years old in October of 2010.
What's depping in?
So the DEP program, DEP, it stands for the Delayed Entry Program.
Oh, okay.
So if I was 17 years old at the time, it's for anybody under 18, where you can join in the delayed entry program with obviously the signature permission of your guardians, your parents. So you go to MEPS, you do the whole shebang. You get the physical, you get the inspection, you do the weird duck walk. Your underwear with a line of other dudes, and you have this really old creepy doctor that just, tells you to
inspects every crack in there.
Yeah, every nook and cranny he wanted to look at. But so then after that, I took an exam, and I saw when my score. I took the ASVAB, got my score, and then got offered like three or four jobs. One of them was an aviation's bosun's mate. The other one was a yeoman. The third one was storekeeper submarines. And the fourth one, I don't remember which one it was. And I was like, you know what? I want to.
Was this at MEPS? Was this right at MEPS, and then they take you into the little counselor office and they run it down to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I saw those jobs, and I was like, ooh, I want to be a grease monkey. I want to be on carriers. I want to work hard. And I'm like, sweet, I want this one. They're like, okay, give me a second. So then my father-in-law now, but my girlfriend's dad at the time called me. He's like, hey, what's going on? How'd it go? Oh, hey, it went well. He goes, so which jobs did you get offered? Which ones did you choose? And I was like, oh, I chose aviation's bosun's mate, and these were the three I got. The other three I got. He goes, oh, okay. He's like, do you want to go to Hawaii? And I was like, excuse me? He's like, you want to go to Hawaii or not? And I was like, yeah. I mean, hell yeah. He goes, go subs. And without thinking, I was like, okay. Like, didn't even think about it. I was like, okay, sure.
You've done no research about submarines or what a LS is or any of that?
None. Back then, it was already LS, but a lot of the job description documentation still said SK, storekeeper, because it used to be SKs instead of LSs. It used to be storekeepers instead of logistics specialists, right? So he said, go subs. Didn't think about it, didn't hesitate, said, okay. So I picked the job and signed the paper, took fingerprints, met with another counselor, and after that, I swore in with, I think, 3 other people. And that was it. I was depped in, and I got a little DEP, delayed entry, laminated ID card, right? It allowed me access on the base and other stuff like that. So I was all, high and mighty and proud and my mom, my dad were very, very proud of me and, hesitant, nervous too. But hey, it worked out. And less than a year later, I left for boot camp. I graduated high school in May of 2011. and I went to boot camp on July 25th, 2011.
That's awesome. And I just want to make sure. So that entry process, did you know you were going to have to choose what rate that day at MEPS? Did they tell you
No,
that?
no, I didn't know that.
That's crazy. How are you supposed to, because you really have to do your research before then, because you don't have a lot of time from doing that physical, the waiting around in the room before they call your name and give you the rundown.
Exactly.
So I can't believe they didn't recommend like, hey, take a look at all these rates because you're going to have to choose one of these and
Yeah, and
you got to do it in one day.
nobody tells you that. And I actually forgot to mention that beforehand, I was very interested in either the SEAL or Spec Warfare program like SWCC,
Yeah.
SWC. So it's a Special Warfare Combatant Craft Crewman. They work with the SEALs. They have their own. They have their own buds. I think they go to buds too, and then they do something else. So it's pretty much like spec op badasses on gunboats. Been
Nice.
in Vietnam, and I was doing the physical fitness tests, and I did like 4 or 5 of them. You have to do a 500-yard swim in this amount of time, a run, push-ups, pull-ups, and I did everything fine except the pull-ups. I could not for the life. I was a big guy, but I was like I was in pretty good shape because of football, but I just never really focus on my upper body strength too much, and I couldn't do 6 pull-ups. It's embarrassing to say, but hey, and because of that, I couldn't do it, and then ended up seeing what other rates would be offered, and then submarines happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pull-ups are one of those things you have to like practice pull-ups to get good at pull-ups. Like no matter how much weightlifting you do or any of that, it's weird how it's those muscles.
Oh yeah.
But so you said your mom was hesitant. She didn't want you to be on, boots on the ground type thing. Did your dad have the same hesitation, or was he gung-ho the whole way, giving you being supportive?
I knew he was hesitant, but as a dad and old school, like tough love type of guy that he was, but he was also a teddy bear. I knew he was hesitant, but he hit it very well.
Yeah.
But he was also like, go for it. I support you. I love you. I'm proud of you. Go for it. He wanted to go out there and make something of himself and see the world, as he would say. He's like, I want you to see the world. And I was like, okay. And he was just great.
That's awesome. And did you have any family in the military, or were you the first one to kind of take that path?
So 6 months before I went to boot camp, my mom's brother's son, my mom's nephew, his name is Omar. He's my cousin Omar. He was 3 months before I left, he started OCS in the Air Force. So he graduated OCS while I was in boot camp, and he's actually still in. He is in the Air Force. He's a major. He's an 04.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think is that in Montgomery, Alabama? They do the little boot camp like thing, and then they usually already have their degree, and then they commission right there and go into be an officer.
Exactly.
So that's cool. Do you know what he does? Is he
So he got a degree in nursing, and he was a nurse for a while at a hospital in El Paso, no, Las Cruces, and then he went to go be like a head nurse at I think it was like a detention center or a prison, something like that. And he's like, you know what, I want something more, and he decided to go in the Air Force, and he's still doing it, and he's doing great.
And that's one of those things I want people to know is you think of the military as, like you said, just kind of infantry, boots on the ground, just a bunch of riflemen. But there's so many jobs out there. Even when I was going in college, I looked in the Air Force program because they had a job where I could be working in a lab.
Right.
But I didn't, I mean, at the time I didn't want to be in a lab. You just blanked out.
Hello?
Still there?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry. I lost it.
No, you're good. I'm just saying there's so many different jobs. So, whatever field you're working in, if you want to go serve your country, go spend some time in the military, maybe travel around, there may be a program for you. That's cool to hear. But, you're talking about boot camp. So were you nervous about boot camp? Excited? Did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into?
Man, I was so nervous. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I mean, would watch YouTube and videos about how Navy boot camp was, and kind of prepared myself for it. And it doesn't really prepare you at all. Like, yeah, I was very. I remember just being very emotional on the plane after I said bye, and it was just a huge reality check. When I was heading up to boot camp, and then it's a very long day. You leave in the morning, you get there in the afternoon, evening, and then you take a bus, to RTC, Recruit Training Command in Great Lakes, Illinois, and you get off the bus, and they automatically start yelling at you, start to get off the bus, look, go in, line up, come, hurry. And you get in there, you line up side by side with all your stuff and a bunch of other people there, male and female. And you have the RDCs, the Recruit Drill Commanders, which is the Navy's version of the drill instructor. Just mess you up, just yell at you in your face, give you a reality check, another surprise. And they start yelling at you to process you. Oh man, kids, sorry.
You're good.
They're trying to process you, get you down the line, get you through the indoctrination process, kind of real quick, like medical. They're getting you in a line to go, down the assembly line process. You have this yellow folder with all your information in there, and you go to these people, you give them your folder, they kind of check you in. It's like a check-in process, and they vet you and everything. Then you finally go into this huge room where you get a box, and you have to quickly take off all your clothes and except your underwear and socks, and throw all your belongings into that box, close it up, write your address on it, because they're going to ship all that back to your house. And then they give you your uniforms, your basic uniforms. They give you a laundry bag, a couple of their small little laundry linen bags. And, they give you what everyone knows as the Smurfs, the blue Navy sweatpants and Navy sweatshirt. You have to get in that. They give you the PT gear, shorts, shirt, toiletries, toothbrush, toothpaste. I forgot what else they give you. It's been a while, and they give you a bunch of other things you're going to need for boot camp. And then after that, you go and you call your parents and say, "Hey, I'm here. I'm safe. I'm good to go. I love you. Bye." And then they take you off to this compartment where you maybe get to sleep 3 hours before they go in and yell at you and wake you up. And that's when you meet your RDCs for the first time. And so I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was very, very scared, very nervous, and very shocked, I'll tell you.
Yeah, as everyone I'm sure is stressed out, and that the unknown is the worst, where I feel like there's a lot of just following orders and you have no idea what's coming next. And if I remember, I don't know how boot camp is, but I went to OCS, and anytime you're out of the norm, or you stick out, or you do something different than the rest of the group, then that's a no-no. And, everyone's going to get yelled at, or, get beat meaning, having to do a workout type thing.
Oh yeah.
Push-ups or burpees or stuff like that. But is it 8 weeks, or how long is boot camp?
It's actually very short. It's 8 weeks. Yeah. Boot camp is 8 weeks.
But it's just pretty much 8 weeks of the yelling and then indoctrination into the Navy.
Yeah, you start off with the basics. How to fold your clothes, and then they have you stencil they give you a little stencil kit, and you have to stencil every bit of clothing you have, your underwear, your socks, your shirts. Just because there's a lot of other good people in there, so when they do laundry and they hand it out, you make sure you get the right, clothes and all that. So it's pretty much how to be a basic seaman. So it's like basic seamanship. You learn terms like you get a little book too that you got to read and study that has naval information and history, like types of aircraft, ships, submarines we have in the Navy, rating symbols, and what you call parts of the ship, like topside, below decks, the forecastle, etc. It goes on.
Now, is there anything you wish you would have known before you went to boot camp?
Uh,
I
I
know for me, I didn't realize the lack of freedom at OCS. Like I knew we were going to be uh, beat down, do a lot of physical activity, some classes, things like that. But I didn't realize how like we didn't even have watches for the first few weeks. I had no idea what time it was,
Oh wow,
and you never have like any alone time, and
yeah,
that was the mentally most difficult part. And I don't know if it would have been nice to know that before, but even then, you just gotta suck it up for a little bit. They can make it harder, but they can only make it so long before you're out of there.
I agree, and I think personally the thing that was hardest for me was how pay how to learn to pay it more attention to detail. Because the first few weeks it's all about details, and so from then on you learn how. But I wish I just knew how to pay attention a little bit better to instruction, honestly, back then, and I wish I would have prepared for that. I wish I would have prepared more for the mental stress on. I think that was the biggest thing for me. I wish I would have prepared for that. I wish I would have known more of how boot camp works, as far as like phases of boot camp and all that. It was just all very new to me. So wish I would have done a little bit more homework before that.
Yeah, and anyone going to boot camp, just you're gonna get challenged. They're gonna try to mess with your head. They want to make you stressed, and
Yes,
just realize that, and just keep pushing through. It's gonna be uncomfortable. I don't know if there's an amount of preparation you can do where you have no problem at all in those situations, but
correct.
just realize it's temporary, and
Yes.
you can get through it. Just don't quit.
Having a positive attitude really goes a long way. And once you create that friendship and camaraderie with the other guys in your division, it's a lot better.
Yeah, everyone's going through the same suck, so that makes it better. So do you know what your A school is from before you went to boot camp, or do you get your orders in boot camp? How does that work?
So I knew I would have to go to school in Meridian, Mississippi, and towards the end of boot camp, everyone gets orders, and they read out everyone's orders. And this usually happens after you already become a sailor. It usually happens after you do battle stations, um, and you graduate. You pass the. They tell you take off your recruit hat and they give you a Navy hat. It's officially when you become a sailor and you finish boot camp. And shortly after that, um, you have about a week before you actually graduate and see your family again. You're pretty much just hanging out, um, doing a couple things here and there. You have a little bit more freedom. And during that time, and the RDCs, the recruit drill instructors, are a lot nicer to you. And so you get to feel like a person. But I was going to say that after that, in between that time, everyone gets their orders, and I got my orders that said report for temporary instruction to NTC Meridian, Mississippi for logistics specialist A school, and then after that, report to Groton, Connecticut for a basic enlisted submarine school, BESS. And yeah, I knew where I was headed right before I graduated boot camp.
How is Mississippi? I've never been to Meridian,
Oh man,
Mississippi.
Meridian, Mississippi is it's a very small city, very small town. There's not a whole lot to do there. Everyone there usually either goes to the mall or Buffalo Wild Wings. Really not a lot going on out there. And it was kind of hot. I remember it being very humid and hot, which I hated. But it was all right. I mean, we were all new sailors and, just starting our school. So we were having a lot of fun we were having a little bit of that freedom of like, hey, let's go, I'm getting paid now. Let's go to the bar, or let's go get a few drinks. That's all you wanted to do. Right. Or, hey, let's go shopping. And, but A school was very, very, it was kind of fun. Actually, the class time was great. The class time was actually self-paced. So you determined how fast you left there and how fast you got through the curriculum to graduate.
Nice. And so I imagine you have to stay at the barracks, and it's not like it's so short that no one gets to really bring their family out there, or do they? Or are you just solo?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much solo. You're just there with your friends, and some people had family nearby, and some people would leave on Fridays and go spend it with them on the weekends, and then come right back.
Yeah.
But
So
focus was school, so you couldn't take leave unless it was an absolute emergency, like a death in the family or whatnot. But that was it. That's what you had to do.
yeah. And then you get to escape the heat and go up there in Groton. Were you in Groton for the winter, or was it a summer sub school?
So I graduated Meridian, Mississippi LSA school October 28th of 2011, and the very same day I flew out to Groton, Connecticut. And I got there that night.
It's cold.
Absolutely exhausted, and it was freezing. Of course I get there during a blizzard, right? Of course. It was just a crazy blizzard. I'm seeing feet of snow everywhere. And I was freezing my butt off, and it was crazy.
How I thought, I mean, I always heard rotten Groton. No one ever wants to go to Groton.
Yeah.
It's the submarine capital, but it's terrible. And I got there for our SOBIC course.
Yeah.
And I thought it was awesome. Like, there's so much history there. Everything's so close. The base is nice. It's got everything you need. It has a nice little running path around there. Did you enjoy sub school?
Oh yeah. Oh, I loved sub school. I was actually one of the few people that really loved Groton, Connecticut. Like the same thing you said. I enjoyed it. It had everything you needed. Very nice vibe. The way the homes look, and the beautiful trees and the coast. And
Yeah.
I just loved it. I did love the history. I definitely did a lot of outings where I would go just to see things, drive around with my friends, and the base was great, had everything you needed. Like you said, the gym, the running path. They had a lot of the MWR, the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation facility there was just great. They were all about, activities for the single sailors out there. For example, they set up a trip to New York for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and
Oh, nice.
a bunch of us signed up, and then we just signed up. I think we paid $40 for the whole thing, 40 or $60 for the whole thing, and it was a whole day event. You leave early, you get there really, really early in the morning, and a lot of us showed up in our dress blues uniforms and went and toured Manhattan, New York, Brooklyn. We got to see the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which was a great time. And I actually got interviewed with my buddies by forgot which news station it was, but my parents saw me on the news.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, but no, I loved Groton. It was great, and I loved the friends I had there. But and I actually stayed there a little longer than planned because I got in trouble right the week we were supposed to graduate. My basic enlisted submarine school class was supposed to graduate. I got in trouble, so I got sent back to the beginning and had to go to another class and do it all over again. Yeah.
I mean, hey, there's worse places to be, right? So.
Yeah.
And did you have your orders when you got in trouble, and then did you show up to the boat late because of that, or how did that work?
I already had my orders. A couple days later, got in trouble and went to.
Oh no!
I went to a DRB, which stands for a Disciplinary Review Board, and I was in a room at attention, looking at a table full of chiefs and master chiefs, and they just lit me up, made me feel this small, right? And I was humbled very quick. And he threatened me. He said, maybe I should make sure you lose those orders to that pretty little boat in Hawaii. And I was like, man, I was like, come on.
Wow.
But I actually got to keep my orders, which was great. I still I did my time there. Finished up my second go around at the class. I was lucky enough to keep my orders, and I showed up to the boat about a month late, really, because they give you a time from they give you a pretty good chunk of time to report to the boat, because obviously after you graduate and stuff like that, okay, here you go. Thank you. They give you enough time to report to your command, so you can take leave, go home and see your family for a couple weeks, and then go to your command, right? So I called my chief, who I was already in contact with. I was like, hey, this happened. And he's like, you're a knucklehead. Well, this and that. Oh, man, I need you here. So he was just making me feel bad, yeah. But, I still got to go to my boat. And shortly after I got to my boat, I was gone. I was deployed that fast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And were you married at this time, or were you still single?
No, I was engaged already, young and dumb and in love and all that. And I had got engaged to my wife after I graduated sub school. No, right before I graduated sub school, because we got to go home in December of 2011. And that's when I proposed to her. And then I went back to school, finished up, got in trouble, had to do it again. So I ended up leaving submarine school in February of 2012. Then I went home for about a week or so, a little over a week. And then I reported to Hawaii, and my boat had just left. They left like a week before to deploy. And I was in indoc for like the first 3 days, and they said, hey, get your stuff together. You're going on a flight real soon. I was like, okay. So the boat had just pulled into Chinhae, South Korea, which is a very small submarine base in Korea. It's like an hour, 2 hours away from Busan.
Okay.
From Seoul. So it's a very small submarine base. And I flew out to Narita, Japan, out of Hawaii to Narita, Japan. From Narita, Japan, I landed in Busan, South Korea, and then got a cab with my chief, who was there to pick me up and took me back to the boat. And very long night. I was very tired. And that's where I met the boat for the very first time, was in Chinhae, South Korea.
Welcome aboard. How confident were you that you actually had everything you needed? Because you've never been on a boat, never been on an underway before, and you're having to pack up and meet your team in Korea.
Oh, I was pretty confident, because the people there in Hawaii, basically, it's at the naval base in Pearl Harbor. It's like, at the time it was 18 submarines. I believe now there's 20 or 22, and then there's some surface ships, but a lot of submarine people there. So the people that were setting me up to go meet the boat they gave you a list of everything you need.
That's good.
You need to put in your sea bag, and they said, make sure you take X amount of toiletries, shirts, socks, underwear, towels, shower shoes, the essentials. And then, of course, if you want to bring other things like snacks, chips, protein powder, whatever. But I was pretty confident. I felt I was pretty set up. And luckily about fast boats is when you pull in, most of the time they have like stores and Walmarts markets or sometimes Navy exchanges. And there was actually a Navy exchange on the Chinhae base. It was like a very small American Navy exchange there, believe it or not.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. All I know of is there's always people that forget things, especially the new guys. And the Cobb is the only backstop. I feel like the Cobb he was like his own little next market. He had anything you ever needed. So that was nice. But do you remember seeing the boat for the first time, like walking on base and seeing it docked?
Yeah. It was nighttime. It was on the pier. There was big fog lights around the pier. And I remember seeing the brow, and you could barely see the boat. But once I got closer, I could see the boat, and I was just like, wow. I was like, this is awesome. I just thought it was great, because finally the months of preparation just to get here, and it was finally there. So I was expecting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What were your first impressions going on board and seeing how small it is?
God, God, it was just different. I was like, whoa. I was like, this is cool. Like, this is just so nautical, right? This is so Navy, and I thought it was like very small. I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is this is tight. Like, this is crazy. And the ladders, the decks, the P-ways, the passageways, the cruise mess, everything. I was just like, this is great. A little small, but I was like, it was just so cool. I was like, because looking from the outside in, you can't really like imagine how it looks in there. But once you go in there, you're just like, wow, how is this possible? Like, engineering and design that went into it is just, crazy. It's so awesome. Just how much stuff is inside a submarine. It blew me away.
No wasted space whatsoever. Where were you sleeping?
So when I first got there, I was sleeping in the torpedo room. I was sleeping next to a Mark 48 AdCap torpedo. They have a certain portion of the torpedo room where they set up racks. So there's like pretty much a big metal 6x2 rack pan that they shove a mattress on top, and you can open it, and there's a compartment underneath it to put your clothes and stuff like that. And they have them really close to each other where the other guy's head was maybe this far away from mine and stuff like that. So I slept there for a little bit, and I eventually went to berthing. But then I had to do what was called hot racking.
Ooh, how was that?
Hot racking was interesting. So hot racking is essentially the practice when there's not enough beds on a submarine, so people have to share. So obviously the E6 and above sailors didn't have to, and neither did the chiefs nor the officers. But the E5 and below, we had to make it happen. So the way it works is you have 3 sailors. The 2 most senior sailors pick their racks. So they have all their stuff in that one rack. The other sailor has all his stuff in the other rack. You, being the junior sailor, me in that case, you're called the jumper. So you have to keep some of your belongings in both of the racks. So you have to plan, like, when I get off watch, this rack is going to be empty, so I'll leave my clothes and shower stuff in this rack, right? Because it'll be free. No one's going to be in it. So after you finish what you're doing and, it's time to go to bed, you put your sheets, right? Because that other person will take off their sheets. You put your sheets on there, your pillow, with your own pillowcase on there. You put his away neatly. And, or usually they already put it away for you. They would already put it away. So it was just a bare mattress and you would have to put your stuff on it. And you do that. I remember maybe sleeping for an hour, 2 hours before the next guy got off watch. As soon as he gets off watch, he goes and he tells me to jump. He's like, "Hey, it's time to jump." He wakes me up. He's like, "Hey, it's time to jump." So I got to jump racks. So the person that was in the other rack when I went to go to sleep was the person that relieved him for watch. So now, that rack was free, but that person was off watch now, and that was his rack that I was in. So I had to jump. I had to wake up. This was every day for like 6 months. I had to wake up after only sleeping 1 or 2 hours, take my sheets off, my pillow, put it on the other bed, go in there and go back to sleep just to wake up 5 hours later to do the same, to go eat, go on watch, get off watch, and do the same thing every day.
So did they already shift to 8-hour rotations, or was it still
Nope.
6-hour watches?
I showed up to my boat in February of 2012. So this was like a little over 10 years ago. And back then we had 18-hour days, 6-hour watches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just get no good sleep at all. You would
At all.
I feel like you're always just waking up. You get as much as you can when you can get it, but
Yeah.
it's gotta be tough.
It was very, very taxing, very mentally, emotionally taxing for me because I was a nub. I was a non-qualified person. I was useless. So a lot of my time was spent doing UIs, under instructions. A lot of my time was spent qualifying and studying and getting checkouts, qualifying an at-sea watch, qualifying an import watch, um, learning how to drive the boat, right? Learning the ship's major systems, from refrigeration to the trim system, the nuclear power plant, the primary and secondary plant, the ship's emergency blow system. Like, just you have to learn everything and study, 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 qualify. That was my life. So I did not sleep a lot for those 6 months, I'll tell you.
How would you describe the qualification process to someone that's not familiar with submarines?
So the qualification process on submarines is they call it a qual card, and it's a list of things you got to learn. So basically it goes off ship systems. So it used to break it down into blocks. So it is basic submarine qualification for the ship's systems and capabilities. Basically, the way I was explained to it and the way I explain it now, even to younger guys now coming to me for checkouts or just getting to the boat, I tell them, you just got to give me a few things. You just got to know these few things for a checkout, right? If it has a drawing, you got to know how to draw it. You got to know the location of it, major components and their locations, and a brief description of how it works, right? And what's it for. If you have those things, you'll be golden. So you basically learning the ship inside and out as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. From the weapon systems.
Yeah, and even if you're...
Yep.
Yeah, because you're a supply guy, but even though your role is supply and LS, you're still staying watch. And even if you're the guy driving the ship, they expect you to know just the overview. So even the nuclear power plant, like you said, you may never go in the engine room at all, but everyone with that submarine warfare device needs to know how it works.
Absolutely.
So
even the cooks, everybody had to know how everything worked, even if it wasn't your equipment, like your fire control equipment, sonar, your nuclear engine room equipment. You still had to know how it works. Yeah, and where things were, because knowing where things were definitely mattered, because in case of a casualty, right, you got to be able to get on that Form C and let people know what's going on and where it's coming from, and be specific, because a lot of times you can secure power to that piece of equipment, or that way the fire teams know where to go if there is a fire, or it's a very detailed. So you really got to be on your game.
Yeah, because it's not like a surface ship where they have DC men, or I don't know what they call them, but dedicated DC people. Every person on the submarine is expected to be able to fight a fire, know what to do in flooding, any of those casualties.
Yes.
At any moment.
Yes.
So
very damaging.
It literally, yeah, because your life depends on it. There's no one else that can come on board. You're just you guys in that little tube.
Exactly.
But so what did that mean to you when you finally got fish on your chest? Do you remember that day?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. It was one of the proudest days of my life. It was something, because, prior to when I had chose submarines, I didn't know really a thing about it. I was just like, okay. And I was doing research, watching videos, reading about it, and I just got so pumped and so interested about submarines. I thought it was so neat, and I was like, man, I want my dolphins. I want my submarine warfare pen for like months and months and months, even before I went to boot camp. And when I finally got them after months of hard work, studying and going through the qualification process, and I passed my board, oh man, it was one of the most proudest achievements of my life, the happiest days of my life. It was August 19th, 2012 was when I got my dolphins. And I remember feeling so proud when they pinned them on my chest, and the whole crew was there to watch and cheer me on after it. It was great. Worth it. It was all worth it.
Did you get your fish? Were you underway at the time? Were you at sea?
Yeah. I got my
So is it in cruise mess and they like hang the big American flag up
yeah,
and the captain gets up there?
yeah.
It's such a great tradition. And, the Thunder Below thing is a tradition as well for all submariners, right?
Yep.
You get to pick your passage like the night before, or leading up to it. You pick your favorite passage of the book,
So
Thunder Below.
about that, right? So that's what we did on the West Virginia. The sailors would, when they knew they were going to pass their board and get their fish, they would go into the Thunder Below book and pick a passage. But that was new to me because back then, or at least on my submarine, they picked it for you. They would go in there and go in the book, and based off your personality and what how you were, they would pick a passage on in that book that like was a reflection of you or similar to you. Yeah,
I like that. I like that one better. I think that's a little more fun.
yeah, it was great.
But we always you made it interesting. I know you. There's a couple of guys that were really enthusiastic and energetic when reading the passage and got into character, and that was always a lot of fun. So those are some of the best times in cruise mess.
Yeah. they were really great. Yeah, very memorable for sure.
So now you're qualified, you're staying in watch, and when do you start learning about the supply system? And you have another job. You're not just a watchstander. You're also expected to get the boats the parts that it needs. When do you start learning about that?
So you start learning it as soon as you get to the boat. You're doing your job and qualifying and learning the ship at the same time, which made it even more challenging because you still had a job to do after you got off watch. Learn your job, do your job, and then go study, and then go qualify. So you learn it. You literally hit the ground running as soon as you get on board.
How did you manage your time? Because before then, I don't think there's anything that compares to juggling that many things at once.
So I would, it was just, you get into a rhythm. And so you would, on watch, I would qualify and study my watch station. And once I did qualify it, if I wasn't actually sitting in the chair, I was studying. So I would get ahead. I was like literally my face in a book, going over procedures and volumes of SSMs and the SORM, the SOM, all these instructions and SSMs. I was just studying on my free time on watch while I was not driving the boat at the time. Because we would drive the boat in shifts. We would take turns. So whenever I would get relieved from driving and I would just have some downtime just to sit there and be the messenger, right, I would just study. And then I would get off watch, eat really quick. I would go eat, do our after watch cleanup really quick. I'd go to my office, try to get the tasks done for that day. Sometimes it was 30 minutes. Sometimes it was 2 or 3 hours. And then after that, I had 2 or 3 hours to study. And I would really study until it was time for me to go to sleep. So when I was oncoming, meaning the section that relieved me just got relieved from watch, 6 hours. And I was like, man, now I got 5 hours left before I have to go on watch again and do it all over. So sometimes I would go into my oncoming and maybe get 2 or 3 hours of sleep before I go on watch. But most of the time, what I tried to do was watch, study on watch, after watch, work. After that, study, go to bed. As soon as basically my alarm clock or my signal was as soon as the section that relieved me got relieved, I was like, oh man, it's time for me to go to bed. So you just have to do the same thing, get into a rhythm. That's how I manage my time. And sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was very hard because, we have shifts drills at odd times of the day or and week. So stuff like that. Or training.
And I think that's really smart. You put a backstep on yourself of, hey, when this watch team is going on watch, I need to hit the rack, because you can go into your oncoming for, a few days in a row and you might be okay, but you can't do that for 6 months straight, or it's really going to start negatively affecting your whole performance, and you won't be a safe watch stander. So definitely, I know a lot of people, pride themselves on functioning with low amount of sleep. But if you can get it, it's definitely something to do. You need to get as much sleep as you can. So I think that's really good.
It's true. I learned the hard way. My mind and body were pretty much shutting down from not sleeping for weeks, and it took its toll. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to manage my time a little better.
Yeah. And so I just want to ask you some common submarine questions too. I get asked a lot, like how the food is on submarines. What did you think when you were there?
Oh man, well, it really depends on the cooks you have. All right, because if the cook division, if they give a shit and take pride in what they do, the food's going to be amazing. But most of the time, they're very young guys with attitudes, lazy, not that smart, right? And I'm not trying to take a jab at my CSs. I love my CSs, my cooks. I love those guys. The same thing goes for LSs. Sometimes we're not the smartest people, in the world, and that's fine. But it really depends on the cooks you have and the attitude that they have, and that starts with their leadership and who their chief or LPO is, right, and what the standard is. But for the most part, the food is great. It's a huge part of morale, and helps with, getting through the day or getting through the watch. Like, oh man, it's burger day today. Like, oh, you have something to look forward to, and you go, and the cooks just did an outstanding job making burgers. And if you can tell, like, we had pretty good cooks on West Virginia, I like to think. Even on my first boat, I mean, not at first, but after my first year there, it was great. But it was great when the whole boat would smell like food, because it was, because the cooks were just getting down. And the food was great. Very talented group of guys, I'll tell you that. They work 12-hour shifts, you know what I mean? And it's day in, day out. And definitely a thankless job, and people need to appreciate them a little bit more, because they have to put a lot of love and skill into what they do for the food to be good. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they would, and they're very talented guys, and if they followed the recipe card, the food would be terrible. They have to put their own spin on it and their own, technique to make the food great. And a lot of them would put a lot of effort into that. And during the night, you'd have a baker, someone would go in there and make fresh rolls for the next day, or desserts, brownies, cookies, cakes, which was all the time. And it was great. You know what I mean? Very fresh stuff. And in between meals, the CSs would put out a lot of snacks for guys just to go and grab. And it was awesome. It was awesome. I think the food on submarines is great. Sometimes it can get old. It can get old, right? But I feel like depending on what crew you have that likes to mix it up, it's going to be great. But definitely,
yeah, because you have your staples. You're going to get burgers every Friday, but they still, with as limited amount of supplies they have, they find a way to make it interesting. And did you have a specific meal that was your favorite?
Oh, I loved when they did like an Asian night, like beef and chicken teriyaki with rice, or like fried rice. You know what I mean? With the bits and peas and carrots in there. So whenever they did like the Mongolian night, right? Oh man, I love that. But one day that I always look forward to would be either like the surf and turf nights, where it was steak and lobster. The best.
Oh yeah,
that was my favorite.
So even on fast boats, that was a weekly thing.
Yeah,
nice. It's a good tradition.
Yeah.
So okay, next thing. What about showers on submarines? What's a submarine shower?
Submarine shower is a very quick shower, and it's like you're taking a bath in a coffin, in like a closet. So a submarine shower, right? The purpose of it is to conserve water, because the ship itself makes its own water, right? And it only has one or two potable tanks to hold that water. There's water being used for drinking water, for the cooks using water, and showers, right? So you can't be making water all the time, because it gets noisy and it's a lot of, stress and work on the machines and stuff like that. And the people get tired of it. I know the nukes get tired of making water all the time. So it's all about water usage. So a submarine shower is you walk in the shower, you turn it on, get wet, right? You just get your body wet, turn the water off, get your loofah, you wash your body with no water, right? No water running. You wash your body, you do your shampoo, right? And then you turn the water on and quickly rinse off, turn the water back off, and you're done. And then you have to, we have squeegees. So you have to get a squeegee and wipe down the walls of the shower when you're done as a courtesy, because keep it clean. It was clean the way you walked in there, and you're going to keep it clean when you leave for the next person. So that's a submarine shower. It literally take about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Just
Yeah.
get wet, turn it off, soap up, rinse off, done.
I really liked them. I thought it's much more efficient, and I've been trying to make my showers faster in civilian life. But did you guys ever get water restricted where
Yes.
you're on mission or you were at sea and they like said, okay, no showers for today, and how long did that last?
So when we went on a very important mission, silence was everything, and it was a pretty serious, very serious mission. And we went into, I forgot what condition it was. I think it was alpha, something like that. So like ultra quiet, right? And so we had to shut down a bunch of other machines and run on as little oxygen as possible, right? And be very quiet. And if you weren't on watch, you had to go to the rack. Like you weren't allowed to be on the mess decks watching a movie. You weren't allowed to work out, right? So it lasted, I'd say, about a month. Where
Wow.
it was about a month where we couldn't shower definitely the first week, and then after that it was all right. We're only going to shower Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you know what I mean? Pick one of those days you want to shower. So the showers are going to be authorized from this time to this time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that went on for the rest of the time after the first week. Yeah.
Did it start to smell, or did you get used to it?
Yeah, some guys were getting stinky. I know people were getting ripe. You know what I mean? But I brought wipies or washcloths, and I remember just getting a little bit of water on a washcloth and giving myself a bird bath with wipies, and stuff that would really help. So I actually had to do that on the West Virginia once because they shut down water for a while for conservation and ultra quiet or whatever we were doing. And I was like, no, that's gross. Like, this isn't my first rodeo anymore. That's why I brought washcloths and wipies, and I would have like a small bucket of water and just wash myself butt naked in the shower. Yeah. No, but it definitely would.
That's smart. I never.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes.
Yeah, I didn't bring any wipes ever, but I would have. It would have been nice to have for sure.
Oh,
so
I felt like I just took one of the best showers ever after I did a washcloth and wipey shower. It was great. But it did get steamy.
Oh man,
the guys were ripe. We really try to make the best of it, and because hygiene is huge on a submarine, you have to be clean. You have to, be, and for yourself too, obviously. But hygiene is very important. That's one of the first things that was taught to me. I've always been a very clean person, also, so I'm all about it. And it did get stinky, and it was. But after about a week or two, and we were starting to take showers, guys were trying to be as clean as possible, so it wasn't too bad, and you get used to it.
Yeah, and it's really holding your shipmates accountable. Like you can kind of tell, I don't know, on the West Virginia walking down berthing, sometimes some what do you call them, 9-man rooms were definitely smelled different than others, and some were all fancy. So depending on who you're with and what their standards are, it can be as nice as you want it to be.
Oh, for sure. But, I was a huge stickler about that. I was not shy to go up to you and tell you to wash your ass or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but I was.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
I didn't deal with it. I didn't put up with it. If you stunk, I was going to tell you, and we were going to fix it.
Yeah. And you have to. That's the way it has to be. Otherwise, it will go on forever. So be a good shipmate, good friend, and tell them they're stinky.
Yeah.
But you're saying you're busy sleeping or either in the rack or studying on watch, doing your divisional work.
Yeah.
If there is any free time, what was, if you could have after you're qualified and it's a little less hectic, what were the things you guys like to do in the free time?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, after you get your fish and you qualify the other watch stations that you have to qualify and qualify senior and rate or whatever, and you have a little bit of seniority and time on the boat, life definitely becomes a lot easier. So in my free time, I would definitely love to work out with my friends after watch, and also catch up on sleep. Sometimes I would get an equalizer once a week. I would just, as soon as I get off watch, I'd go shower, go get 10 hours down and go sleep, right? Reset.
Nice.
But yeah, so I enjoyed working out with the guys, we used to play video games in cruise mess and watch movies, sometimes even TV shows that people had on their hard drive and stuff like that. So, or marathons of movies like the Fast and Furious and stuff like that. So that was really the biggest thing, was movies on the mess decks, burning flicks, working out. Oh, and playing spades and cribbage. Of course, that was my favorite thing to do with the guys, was just being around them, like movies, cards, working out. It was the best thing. I wasn't really huge into, I've never been big into reading. A lot of guys in their spare time would read like books. So you'd have guys that read 30, 40, 50 books on a deployment. You would have other guys that would do school, or learn a different language and stuff like that. But that's what I did on my free time.
Yeah, and I didn't know of cribbage before Submarines, and I was frantically trying to learn the rules on the VSP out to the boat when I first showed up, because it's kind of complicated, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a good little tradition as well. So
definitely,
shout out to cribbage.
Showed up to the boat, man. Yeah, I'll never forget that. You were I think I was one of the first people you saw, and you the first thing you asked me was, "Where can you hang your towel?"
Yeah, there's no room. There's no space.
You're like, where can my towel, or like, how do I get in my rack too? Because you didn't know how to get in the top rack too without stepping on the other person's rack. I was like, oh, let me show you. So like, there's a handle up there. You can use it and lift yourself up into the rack. Or there's a chair. So a lot of people just move the chair, right? And you can just climb up there, but also you can use that to hang your towel. And I remember teaching you how you could hang your towel too, like in your rack also. I remember too, you were very young. I remember I was like, man, like this guy just graduated high school, or you looked so young. And I remember you just shredded, bro. Like you were just shredded. Cause you had just got out the shower. I think I was like, God dang, this guy's shredded. I didn't know really who you were, because that was the first time I met you. It was funny.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was. I didn't maintain it. I'm trying to get back, but
Yeah.
it was definitely, it's a culture shock going on there. And and like you said, I didn't know for the first few days that there was actually a handle up there to get in the top bunk. I was like, man, this is really complicated. And after you start doing it a couple days, it becomes fun. It becomes nice. And I remember the first few days waking up too in the racks where you don't have any headroom. So I was, all my life, I wake up and I sit up straight. And first 3 days on the submarine, I wake up, try to sit up straight, and just bang my head and go back down. So, it took a few days, but after that, I was good to go.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing I enjoyed about being on the West Virginia. It was my second submarine tour. I had some time on the pond. I love just teaching the newer guys, just that, because when I was on my first boat, there was a lot of hard times, right? And a lot of really shitty people sometimes. And I swore that I would never be like that whenever I get to their level or get to that point. I would never do that to anyone else, right? Because it was really tough. A lot of the guys going through now that are new to submarines, I think it's hard. If you went 10, 12 years ago, even 15, 20 years ago, a lot of people would not last. I'm telling you, it was
Yeah.
And so when I became senior and I got to my boat, and my second boat on the West Virginia, and had some experience and some seniority, and I was first class, I just loved giving knowledge to the guys, whether you were enlisted or an officer, because you were still new. So I loved teaching you guys and showing you tricks or how to do things. And I it went a lot. I think it went a long way. It definitely made me feel good because I got to teach somebody, and without them having to learn the hard way. So I
And
enjoy.
there's no, yeah, and I think you're great at it because there's no better feeling than learning from someone that is enthusiastic about it, that you really can see wants you to learn, and but also, you know, you're both, it's a mutual respect where you're not being lazy and you're not expecting them to spoon feed you. As the person learning, it's still expected that you put in the time, the effort, come up with your questions, and that you're eager to learn. And then the person, the expert, will help if, as long as you're respectful. And
Yeah,
it's, for the most part, that's how it should be, and that's how it goes. I remember you pretty much taught all the officers how to rig the bridge for dive,
yeah,
and that was an awesome experience going up there. How just methodical you were about it, and making sure each and every one of us knew it exactly how it should be, because stuff like that, all that is important too. Because if someone screws that up, you know, you could get water in the boat, and the boat could go down. So it's very, you could see in the way you taught people that you truly cared and were respectful. So I think that's how everyone should be.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, of course, but so like you said, you had tough times. You got through that first underway, and you finally get to be in Hawaii, not on the submarine. Did you enjoy that tour in Hawaii?
Oh yeah, I did. I was on that boat. I was in Hawaii on that boat for 4 years, and oh man, I loved it. I enjoyed it so much, so much. Going out to Waikiki and going to the bars and the clubs and parties, and going on hikes was one of the best parts. And all the beautiful beaches. They have so many beautiful beaches and spots out there. That was one of my favorite things to do too. So it was perfect weather all the time, and I enjoyed it so much, so much.
Were you were you in 3-section duty, or how much duty did you have to stand?
No, in port we were in 4 section duty, but when we came back from deployment, or if it was so like when we came back from deployment, we would have a 30-day stand down, and then also during like holidays, we would have like a stand down period where sections were cut short because we were trying to support people going on leave. So during those times, we were 3-section duty. Um, and if it was a stand down time, if you weren't on duty, you weren't at work. So it was great. But
Oh, nice.
normal import routine, right? Getting ready for deployment. We were in 4 section. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, it got old very quick. And it was a pain in the ass too, because let's say you wanted to go hang out with your friends, or plan something on the weekend. It was a lot of planning, man, because you have to plan around the boat. Your life revolves around the boat. You want to plan something and invite these people, but they can't make it because they're on duty that day, or then like, okay, how about this thing? Oh, now this other person's on duty. It was just weird. But after my first year, I got really lucky because for like 90% of my time there, every time I was on like in the duty section, all my friends were in the same duty section. It was a bunch of them. It
Nice.
was great.
And yeah, I guess if you know whoever makes the watch bill, you can try to push those ideas and try to, make some moves to make sure it works out well. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I guess it's just luck who you're going to be on duty with.
Yeah. I was so junior back then. Like, I didn't make any decisions except following orders, really. So, so
Yeah, that's true. So you went from beautiful Hawaii, tropical paradise, to Kings Bay, Georgia. So
I
what you
Diego after I left my first submarine. So yeah, no, I left my boat in March of 2016 after 4 years, and I reported to Naval Base Point Loma in San Diego, and I was there for 3 years.
okay?
Had a great time, loved it there, and I wanted to stay there. And my wife was already pregnant when I was up for orders, and I wanted to go back to Hawaii, back to a fast boat. And I was like, you know what? I was gone a lot. I was out to sea, underway, or deployment all the time. So I was like, I don't want to miss out on my son's life, or that time with my wife. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a boomer. I'm going to go to be a BN. and I got lucky and decided I wanted to go to Kings Bay. I didn't want to, but decided to because my father-in-law, who's also in the Navy, he's still in the Navy. He was an ACR. He was the assistant chief recruiter as a master chief out there in Atlanta. So I was like, you know what? Let's go to Kings Bay, Georgia. Atlanta's only 6 hours away, so that way if I'm gone or whatever, her family's close by, and that's what we decided to do.
Awesome. And now you're a little more experienced. Are you second class at this point, or?
Yes, I was
Okay.
a very senior second class. I'll tell you, because I made second class after 3 years of 3 years being on the boat. I made it back in 2014 after we came back from that deployment in August. I made it a couple months later, and I was an E5 on shore duty, and that was an E5 when I first got to the West Virginia. After I was a very salty E5. Eventually made first in West Virginia. I know you remember that day, but yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. And so how was it? Now you're in more of a leadership role. You're a sea returnee showing up to a new submarine.
It was great. It was definitely great. It allowed me an opportunity to sharpen my leadership skills and learn more different ways of styles of leadership. You know what I mean? And I did learn a lot of different styles and methods of leadership and stuff like that. Because I think we had a pretty decent Chiefs quarters. You know what I mean? A couple of them really sucked, and I hope I never see them ever again. And I just won't say anything else. But a lot of them too were just very positive and very positive guys, and would take the time to teach me or talk to me, and I would observe how they would lead and with how they would just operate. And I was like, that's awesome. And I found it very rewarding when I got to when I had a lot of those guys that looked up to me that were new, and they saw me as, this guy, their role model, their leader. And it took me a really long time to kind of like realize that, because whenever I would mess up and I would get in trouble hard, because I was the role model. I was the guy people look up to. Am I acting like that? You know what I mean? And, and all that. But I found it rewarding to be a leader and a role model for the guys. And I found it challenging too, but I loved the challenge. I really enjoyed it.
And I always thought, the watch station, chief of the watch, is one of those big steps in leadership roles where before then you're more just responding to orders, but chief of the watch, you have to take a lot of initiative and a lot can go wrong. When did you qualify chief of the watch?
So I qualified chief of the watch and duty chief on my first submarine as a second class.
Nice.
I stood a couple days of
hard charger.
Yeah, I stood a couple days of duty chief and did some duty chief time, and then I stood some chief of the watch, and that's when I qualified. And then so showing up to the West Virginia, it was a lot easier just to get back into that and relearn some of the stuff. And just, it's like riding a bike, you're a little rusty at first, but it's you get back on it. But it was still again challenging to relearn how crazy being a chief of the watch can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What was your favorite part? So I think of, it's stressful to surface the boat, to submerge the boat, and then also all the casualties. So if there's any fire or anything like that, it's you on the mic most of the time.
Yeah.
If it's not the officer of the deck that's making all those announcements, you're definitely the one telling them, what fire hose to route, all that. Did you have a one that your favorite? I know casualties aren't fun, but it is when you do them well and nothing bad happens. What was your favorite part of staying and watch?
Oh yeah. Well, I definitely enjoyed battle stations. Cause I eventually I was trained, as a chief of the watch by now Chief Crane. Great guy, such a great guy. And it was so awesome to serve with him. And he was good. He was a really good chief of the watch and really good at everything he did, to be honest. And, so he taught me a lot about that watch, more in depth about the boomer style and battle stations. And he was about to leave. He left shortly after, and the cop said, "Hey, you're going to be the guy," because he saw I had experience. He saw I was pretty good, and I wasn't nearly as good as Crane was, but Crane, he made me pretty good. So I ended up being the battle station chief of the watch, and that was my favorite. Was just being the guy for battle stations. Whenever we had to get the ship ready to launch missiles or practice launching missiles and stuff like that, and bringing the hovering system up, moving the water, being on the comms. The communication, the casualty drill processes. It was just a lot of fun. Very fun.
Yeah, because the chief of the watch, for anyone that doesn't know it, they are the person who is actually taking the water in and discharging the water, and is the person controlling in a large part the buoyancy of the ship and the control of the ship. So they play a huge role, and
right. Control
it needs to be
the trim and drain systems, a lot of hydraulic systems and switches, the masts and antennas, the hovering system as air monitoring air and all that. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
And so you're saying Chief Crane was big, very influential in teaching you and being a leader. And in your time, what would you say are like the qualities you respect in a leader, or what you want to be as a leader? What type of qualities would that person have?
So first off, one of the people that to me were the biggest influences on leadership was at the time he was an ITS-1 Crane. He was a first class, and he made chief after he left. So it was him.
Yeah.
Now Senior Chief Gaddis, FTC Chief Schultz. Cobb.
He's retired now, right?
Yeah. I talk to him all the time still, and Cobb was also really great. Cobb Cox, he was awesome. Senior Chief Chapman, and Chief Daniels, Chief Evans, the YN chief. Just God, love those guys, man. Chief Strait, the Nuke Strait. Basically, a lot of the chiefs, right, were awesome. Really good leadership styles. But
so what do you, go ahead.
The important qualities for leadership that I like to see and that I value, and that I take on for me and want to, sharpen those skills and become better is transparency. Being transparent with your sailors, with your guys and your people. Communication is huge. Being very patient. And that's one thing that I struggled with for a long time, is being patient. So being a patient person, a patient leader, being understanding, right? As far as, and being humble. Humble is one of the biggest things for me too, because you never want to forget where you came from. I'll never forget that I was that young sailor that didn't know anything and that was making mistakes, right? Humility, transparency, communication, compassion, knowledge, right? And the leader that makes mistakes. I think the leaders that make mistakes are the best leaders, because at the end of the day, they're human. Are all human. And you only become better because of mistakes. That's what teaches you and makes you better. Honestly, those are my biggest things.
Yeah, it's great stuff. It's definitely well-deserved first class there. Almost, wish it was sooner. So, but I really appreciate you sharing your insight and coming on the podcast. I know it's a Sunday and there's probably other things you'd rather be doing, but I think a lot of either future submariners or current submariners can get a lot of value out of this.
And trust me, this was not a hassle. I'm the one that reached out to you. I thought it was awesome, and no, this is what I want to do. I could do this anytime. I promise. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'm sure we missed some stuff. We'll have to have you back on again. But I wanted to wrap it up here and get your take on your advice to, if it'd be a high schooler, that 17-year-old you, or maybe someone that's already started a career and they want to shift into the military and they want to go submarines. What is, if you had to give them one thing of advice? I know it's putting you on the spot.
It's okay.
But what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it's okay to make mistakes, and that's the best way to learn. Work hard. Don't be lazy. Earn everything you're going to have because nothing's given. Appreciate that they're the reward after, the work. The people are going to be the best part. The people are going to be literally the most important, best part of your time joining the Navy. And there are good times, there are bad times. There's a lot of good times, right? But that's life. In life, you need to understand that it's just how it works sometimes, right? But the people are the most important thing in the Navy and the most fun thing. And it's just huge to go out there on your own, make something of yourself, which I really recommend doing right off the rip. It's going to put you years ahead of your peers as far as like work ethic, financial status, right? Experiences. You're going to get to see and experience so much. If you think you know a lot of things now, just wait until you join the Navy, and it is a 100% worth the ride. 100%.
That's a awesome way to button up the podcast, and just thanks so much, JV, for continuing to serve. And
yeah, no problem.
Already all your years in service so far, all the other people out there standing watch, whether in port or at sea, and fighting the good fight. So thank you so much. And that's Mike White podcast number 12, I think. So yeah.
Hey, thank you for your service too, that you were in the Navy Submarine Force, and it was such an honor to serve with you.
Thanks, JV.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.